alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, thanks first of all, Engineer Tahir. I need to start with some apologies because my session is going to be fully in English, so sorry for that disruption to the Arabic flow of the morning. My name is Hichem Troudi. I work for Damac Properties. I have been in the Middle East region, specifically in GCC, for 18 years now, working across different sectors on digital delivery, digital transformation at project, program, and company and organization-wide level. So the aim of this session, I will start from where Engineer Tahir ended, mentioning like trying to get the puzzle resolved and clear. Great lineup of speakers and sessions, great lineup of topics and content from technology perspective. But there is one common point or one overlap in between all of this. I understand every one of you is coming with specific like focus on center area like scan to BIM, digital twin, BIM, advanced project management techniques, but there are some overlaps between all of these technologies. And hopefully by end of this session, we'll just understand how to get the successful use cases of implementing these technologies in single independent project use cases to wider organizational adoption. So just to start, we will start by 1, 2, 3. One is the defining the context, like why we need to focus on digital innovation and digital transformation in our AECO industry, architecture, engineering, construction, and operations. The second one, we're going to go into the what. So just to understand what's the ecosystem for digital transformation. If you are really keen to work on transforming your company, your way to deliver projects, either you are consultant, multidisciplinary, trade consultant, general contractor, subcontractor, or a developer. So all of this will be something that will be like aligned with whatever you do have in plan internally. Then we are going to move into item number 3 to explore more how really the best practices are into adopting strategies. We hear a lot about strategies, digital transformation strategy, change management strategy, and guess what? Only 35% out of these are successful. And we will understand what are the key enablement factors that we need to make the remaining 65% successful as well. 4 and 5 will be an illustration of the use cases of digital implementation or digital innovations. Worth noting that anything that's going to be shared by today is coming from real-life use cases of implementation. Nothing is theoretical, nothing is already under process. So everything is really practical, coming from the ground. So just to start, we need to understand the why, so the ecosystem and digital innovation. Let's start with the historic understanding of it. So first of all, the last 3 to 4 decades have been globally very, very challenging. Technology has been growing exponentially. And by the way, what I'm showing right here is not the construction technology only, it's everything else. So talking even about WhatsApp, talking about telecommunications. So the 90s, it was more into building the foundations, having more IT operational adoptions of servers, of processes, of moving to cloud. Then we moved into the stage number 2, where we do have a bit of smarter integrations and technologies like having smartphones, smart devices. And then, for the last 15 years minimum, we started to talk smart technologies. Smart technologies, as you can see, many of these are relevant to our industry. And since 2017, we have been talking about construction 4.0, where you do have BIM as the core of it. Because BIM right now is not anymore an emerging technology, and we are even moving from BIM to digital delivery as a wider scope. So with that said, now let's a bit focus from global perspective, cross-industry, into AECO construction industry specific. There is a lot of envelopes being put in there by developers, by authorities, by policymakers as well to invest into the ecosystem, the new digital ecosystem of construction. The yearly growth is already positive. As you can see, the average, and these are already published online, 17.2% of growth year on year from 2023 to 2030. Guess what here? Like 3 of every 4 construction companies, they do have already plans in place either to start their digital innovation journey or at least to upgrade whatever existing in there. Taking into consideration of the technology that we have mentioned in terms of technologies and construction 4.0, we have seen historically a lot of adoptions of different technologies in our market. The 2011 to 2020 has been called the BIM decade, because simply it went from 13% only, a global level of adoption, to 83% level of adoption by the different stakeholders in this industry. This is independent from whatever BIM level we are talking about. Is it 3D, is it 4D, is it 5D? And same for the other technologies in terms of construction. So the idea here, there is a lot of adoption. Then the question, why this company are either willing to adopt digital innovation or already investing in it? So this is the type of arguments that leaders and strategists among organizations, they do have understood just to be able to deliver that envelope. So there are quantifiable ROIs, like return on investment. As you can see, increase of productivity, upgrade of quality, and cutting the cost. This is generally the triangle of quality, time, and cost and efficiency that we hear about. But there is another part which is less quantifiable in terms of revenues, which is the other ROI, return on information, which is more about having a more efficient supply chain. When I mention supply chain here, I mean like your LDCs, top consultants, sub-consultants, contractors, their subcontractors, vendors, all led by the owners and the operators. So with that said, everything looks perfect, right? I don't think it's really the case. There are gaps in our market. That's why the response will be digital transformation strategy. The main gaps we are really dealing with. First of all, the big disconnection. In terms of many companies, they are just like claiming to have digital transformation underway in place, thanks to one single or two implementations of specific X software or technology in one or two or three projects. This is not digital transformation at all. So all of these efforts into having digital transformation have been failing simply because they are relying on independent technology and the way there is no proper governance set in place to lead the early stage adoption, mid stage adoption, and late stage adoption, including maintenance and support. The other one, in terms of solutions, the infrastructure itself, the technology itself, we don't have a one-stop shop. We don't have a solution that can do everything. For engineers, for project managers, design managers, BIM guys, it's not really the case. So you have to make your way within a very difficult and complex network of solutions in there. Keep in mind that digital doesn't equal technology. Technology is one piece out of three to enable digital innovation. The other pieces are process in place, proper process in place, and the third one, which is the most important one, is ownership, is to have people who are owning that change in a proper way, setting up the business rules, setting up the process, and then selecting the best technologies to map with that business need. So, we understood the context now, why it's somehow important to fill these gaps and bridge these gaps by having properly structured digitalization or transformation at organizational level. Now, how digital transformation and ecosystem market looks like, really. So first of all, from digital perspective, we have heard a lot of terminologies. So if you go browse LinkedIn, you'll find a lot of people having digital plus something else. Digital delivery, digital practice, digital information manager, there is a lot. Let's try to structure them a bit. All of these, whoever is working on project level, so this is under the digital delivery. Stage-wise, in terms of projects, we do have digital design delivery, that's pre-construction, or digital construction delivery, which is really during construction itself. But there is one third part over there, which is very important to capture, which is the digital business management. And this is the whole ecosystem. So 1 and 2, they are more into project digitalization initiatives. 3 is not. Somebody can ask me, you are telling us about digitalization of talent acquisition, about marketing, about business performance or learning and development. What do I have to do with that? I'm just a project guy. It's very important, and I tell you why. First of all, when companies like contractors or consultants, they are bidding for projects. Either you are a contractor bidding to get the construction program, DMB, DBB, whatever the type of contract, or if you are a designer, multidisciplinary, single disciplinary, who is really bidding for a scope to get from developer, let's say. You do have your charge out rates in terms of bid. Part of it, like 60 plus, 70 plus, whatever, is coming from the direct expenses and costs that you have to spend based on your engineers, your architects, your PDs, PMs, whatever stuff who are relevant as direct stuff. But on top of that, when you price your project, you do have some sections for indirect charges, some other for corporate charges. These corporate charges generally, they are coming from the expenses that every single company is spending on IT, on finance, on HR. These are the support functions generally overlooked. It means whenever you get inflation on your HR operations, your total charge out rate to your client will be very high, which means you might have less chances to get a job as a contractor or as a designer. So if you think about getting technology in this area, you're going to be compressing your cost, you're going to make your margin bigger, and then you have more chances to get projects. That's the importance of having the business management digitalized. Some of these services as well, they're directly linked to projects execution, just like onboarding by HR. How many companies they would like to start based on client mandate, but they cannot simply because they don't have any proper CVs screening system in place. And then they don't have the roles that the client needs and mandates in place simply because they are reviewing things manually on PDFs, as an example. So that third part is really very important. Now, you do have a project where you implemented single kind of technology, and it was successful based on specific ROIs or KPIs that you have set. Now the question, how you make this at company level? Your project manager will be happy. The project team will be much happier than him even. But your CEO, COO, and all the leadership, how you make this happen in other projects. It's not simple copy-paste, because you don't have the same team. You don't have the same business rules. You don't have the same requirements in there. So first of all, whenever thinking digitalization, you have to think scalability. How you make that specific technological use case. Is it digital twin or single BIM implementation in project based on client mandates or reality capture or photogrammetry, whatever the technology is, you have to look into how this one could be scalable to be implemented on a wider cross-program level, cross-regional level, or cross-company level, independently from the scope of your company. You might be handling 20 projects, 30 projects, 5 projects only. That's fine. But keep always this in mind whenever selecting or pre-selecting technology and innovation area. The second one is consistency. Whenever implementing technology in one project and then moving into others as a pilot, you have to think about how to make it consistent among the different projects and to align the different projects on this implementation. So if I spend some time doing some R&D in one project, it's not necessary for the other project 2 and 3 teams to do the same because it has already been done. This is part of the governance. If I do have some best practices I got from that single project, I need to create a kind of mechanism and library to allow for the best practices to be consumed by the other projects so we do have a proper alignment and we do avoid the same mistakes that happened in one specific site. Governance, this is the most important part. All of this should be properly monitored on centralized way. And we're going to see this in details based on the use cases projected. So now we understand the overall ecosystem. Now, okay, we do have the scope. There is one company and we would like to do digital innovation. From where to start? You can be challenged by somebody telling you, I can put like 7 digits or 8 digits budget for you, but tell me from where to start. So we'll understand, first of all, the steps, the phasing of it. First of all, you start with defining. 1 and 2 steps are just for defining mainly. You start having a current, which is called as-is process scanning, current process review, and gap analysis to understand how you are delivering and understand the gaps. Because we have to keep in mind, sometimes, with due respect to other startups, sometimes you are driven by over expectations, or we are driven by over expectations, because marketing speech sometimes is higher than the reality. So instead of thinking about getting a solution, you have to understand what am I supposed to resolve first. You have to identify your problem within your delivery model. Is it design relevant, BIM relevant, construction management, quality management, cost monitoring, progress reporting, whatever. You have to identify these gaps first, then look for the solution, not the other way around, just to please the top management and to implement AI/automation or whatever. So then we move into identifying the main practice areas and components of our digitalization roadmap and strategy. Whenever done, we move into something called registration, where we do assign ownership. As I mentioned, you do have technology, but you do have a process and ownership. And here we define the ownership in terms of who is going to be doing what for all the digital projects. We call them digital projects or digital initiatives, by the way. The ownership is not about somebody to do the job only. No. There is ownership, there is collaboration, collaborators, and there are sponsors as well. And this is a kind of top-down approach. Then you move into the deployments. So 4 and 5, they're more into the deployment of that technology across the board, across the business. 4, you start with some quick wins, some proof of concept, some pilot project implementation, where you get all your lessons learned, all your best practices, you document them, and through proper mechanism, cross-divisional, I heard that word early in the morning, which is really amazing. And then you get into building more maturity as part of your governance. You define your best practices and you make it as methodology, like your DNA, in your DNA of that X company. And you see all of these steps projected against real-life use cases, by the way. Don't worry, it's not theoretical. So then, step number 2, we are here reviewing all the practice areas. This is a real-life case where we do have 64 plus digital projects, 17 among which are covering the digital delivery technology, which is, in other terms, project delivery and project management. The others are covering the digital business management, which was like the section 3, if you recall, on the key pillars. So with that said, we move into building the transformation register by having proper timeline of all of the initiatives. So if you do have 1 or 2, it's somehow simpler. But if you do have like 10 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus, you need to have a project manager on top of all of these digital initiatives. And that's why ownership is very, very well important. Then you define the roles, the ones that I mentioned, and even the phases. There is something just like the rules of credit for payment and cost-wise. We do have these steps in terms of reporting of the progress, because it's not about sharing an email with somebody telling him, we did a good progress this week implementing X, Y, and Z. The reporting doesn't happen this way. It should be granular, quantifiable, and properly tracked against the KPIs set in the beginning before implementing that X technology. What you are seeing here is a live extract. It's a bit of longer list, but I'm just keeping this for the visibility of the slide, where we do have a list of the different digital initiatives. You can see the owners by department, collaborators. You can have more than one. The sponsors. Sponsors, generally, they should be at high level. I will show this as enablers. So you need to have your core leadership engaged into that. The real gap, I told you, if you remember, 35% only of the successful implementations are happening in the market. However, 65 are not. One of the biggest reasons of the failures of digital transformation in the market is the disconnect between top leadership and the executors, the people who are doing the transformation or implementation of technology on the ground. Expectations are set very high at management level. The envelope is being approved and signed off for the doers to do that job. Then there are a lot of issues, escalation, and there is a problem into translating this into something that the business can understand, like impact on the investment that has been put in there. What's needed is certain role and responsibility at high senior level, speaking the same leadership language to allow for that to happen and to allow for that support to be under sponsorship level. So what you have seen here are milestones. So every month you do have specific projects to be achieved. When I say project, it's not a product to be developed necessarily. It might be service as well, or it might be an upgrade to an existing process through digital infrastructure or digital data model to be newly created. That's from one use case. So on this one, this is another use case of, sorry, let's go back. Good. So this is another type of scope in terms of enabling digital services within a business. It's not only about implementing technology in project. This is about enablement of a digital business unit within a company where you do have different projects and different ownership to be flagged. Every single line item here does have execution plan, feasibility study, ROIs, KPIs, and R&D being done already. That's part of the governance to be set right from the beginning. Now the question. Very good. We have seen a lot, so we are very excited to implement this. But what do we need? These are the key enablers. Flexibility required from the business, from CEOs, owners, COOs, to enable this to happen. First of all, think always about relying on external collaborations. Don't think only about using your own, I heard the word in-house stuff. No, no. Think about being open to external. And when I say external, generally we think like developers, contractors, consultants, they are the world for us as construction. No, there are solution providers. These are one other external partner. Solution providers, including startups in terms of software or digital service providers. You do have policy makers like Standardization Institute, but you do have another one which is very important, which are academia and universities, which are less engaged in the digital innovation journey by the companies. Next, your management or yourself, if you are a manager in your company, you have to be open to do piloting in your project if you are a PM, or in your program if you are a program manager. You need to do that. You need to do that piloting. Don't be afraid or worried about, no, this is an information that nobody needs to know except my team on the project because that core support team meant to do the innovation is not within my team. This is not the way it should be played. Third, enabling resources and team. Don't rely on single person telling like, I do have my champion in project X to drive BIM. It will never work this way. It can work under specific circumstances and contexts within one single project or department, but never at consistent, systematic company level. Fourth, and I see this is the most important one, I have heard the word about cross-functional. This is great. It's cross-divisional digital network. I can tell you an example. Some of the companies I was part of and leading regionally digital practice for, we have 70 plus people work as a network working on cross-divisional digital networking and cross-regional. Now, for example, at Damac, we do have 30 plus people under the transformation team working on digital transformation and project upgrades. Last but not least, your people should learn from you. They should not just come to office to work and wait for payroll and salary end of the month. They have to learn. That's the most important one. You have to enable forums and context of learning to our people, your engineers, your architects, your specialists. They have to learn within your company. Make this happen. You can do it in-house. You can procure and purchase platforms to do the training. You can offer them subscription to LinkedIn Learning. So that's fine. But make them learn. Otherwise, there will be speed gap in between what you are doing on paper trying to implement and what people on site should be adhering to. And that's a big issue. Bigger even than not having digital innovation. So talking about the cross-divisional, this is how it's looking like. I have a company and I would like to enable a digital network. How should the structure be looking like? 4 levels. Top down, it's strategically speaking here. You need to have representation of digital, of technology and innovation umbrella within the leadership team. Is it a director, chief digital officer, VP or whatever title? It's not about the title, it's about the function. So in every board meeting, you do have that person to represent what the company is doing at that level from innovation perspective. The second one, you need to have a core team to manage the different practice communities. As mentioned in the morning, there are many practice communities. Field to BIM, you do have AI implementation, you have quality management, cost management, project controls in general. Third one, peer-to-peer technology groups. These are the real doers. So for every 3 or 4 people you do have in level 2, you might have like 18 to 20 people doing the real job, including these guys already. Last one is to have your project and office champions, because many initiatives, they need office support. So generally what we do, unfortunately what the industry does, is just to start putting champions in projects and saying like, we are implementing technology, we are innovating, we are missing a lot here. Now the question will be how to chronologically screen or sort this, where to start. I will tell you 1, then 3, then 2 and 4. Because with 1, you will enable the proper understanding, get the buy-in from leadership, secure the governance in place and support from leadership to put the money to invest in that. 3, You enable the doers to do that as POCs and pilot and implementation. Then you move into creating your 2 and 4 and move to sites to do the implementation rather than having this as site-dependent type of deployment. That's the most important one. This core group, it's called peer-to-peer technology groups. So a good example of it, this is a real-life case. We do have these technology groups. They do have different projects. On average, every technology group does have 17 to 20 initiatives to work on. On average, every group is having 6 to 7 people to work on. Somebody will ask me, we don't have enough budget to get all of these people to pay them salary just to do the change rather than delivering projects. I'll tell you it's not really the case. There are 2 scenarios here. Either you do have your independent transformation team, just like what we have at Damac, or you do have it embedded team. So the best guys you do have in your department, you allocate 10%, nothing more, of their time weekly to work on these initiatives. But you track them well. You put them on the proper track. So it's an embedded transformation by the people who are already sitting in the departments, not to support their own departments, but to support the cross-divisional initiatives. Okay, now let's move to the use cases. Okay, so the first use case is about BIM upgrades, BIM services upgrade and digital delivery upgrade for a global leading consultant, multidisciplinary, global leading, when I say like on the top 2 consultant. So the main idea, as I mentioned, is to upgrade the BIM practices in there. So what we started to do, if you recall, step number 1, is just to do the gap analysis. What we have done, we went into having the proper analysis for each business delivery area, similar to what you see right here, across to the 3 type of enablers that you well know, people, infrastructure, and SMPs. So for all of these, we do have checklists, we do have scoring criteria, and we do have proper analysis based on which we understand that this kind of color-coded template that you are seeing right here. This is to understand what are we missing. Based on these components, you start to identify your roadmap from where to start and what really to maximize. So as I mentioned, it's not about technology. It's about process and people to set the process and to own the technology. So working on the processes, we have had several engagements in terms of updating the existing processes, providing the new ownerships, defining them by tasks even. That's on the first side of it. I will give you an example, a figure. For within Damac, we do have one of the digital projects relevant to design where we do have 143 processes. We have done process mining just to understand how the as-is process is, and then we started to integrate them and get them into half through automation and through AI. So that's on the processes. That's the case of BIM, but BIM doesn't work in isolation. BIM works with design. We have identified the way design talks to BIM and BIM talks to design by identifying the what and how. It's about your design team, your design managers, your engineers, your architect to define what needs to be done, what are your deliverables. And your BIM team to define and to work on how should that be delivered. So that's on the process. Again, I will mention this. The most important and crucial asset in every company is people. It's not software. It's not really legacy processes. So what we have done, we did have 200 plus BIM people in the team, and we started to categorize whatever they are doing. Maybe you don't have an understanding what was the problem before. So before it was very primitive type of BIM, more into 3D geometry modeling rather than data-rich 3D plus modeling. You do have a clear roles definitions. You don't have a proper talent tracking and attraction. I don't say talent acquisition, I say attraction, because through this one we have built attraction, I will tell you how. And you don't have proper job description for these roles. So we started by defining the categories of BIM. That's the first level. Then going one level more, we identify the seniority roles within these categories in terms of BIM. These are typical to everybody. Let's take it one step further. We have created something called BIM career level. You do have a BIM stream, but you do have a BIM engineering stream, and then you do have coordination and you do have the management. All of these career levels, they have been mapped to the HR processes. So everybody who is having a title, it's aligned with this one, his grade is aligned with this one, And his KPIs are aligned with this one. Even his timesheet is being filled, based on the type of tasks that's going to be shown in the next slide. So what you are seeing here is the responsibility applicability matrix. It's much longer than that. So applicability of all of these tasks, first of all, by practice area, which is in light blue. Then applicability by category and role, either BIM lead or coordination or technician. And then applicability by design stage as well, which is very important. And based on this, we have recreated all the job descriptions for everybody in there. Your job descriptions are done. That's good. What's next? Is to track what people are doing, what they're delivering. So we have identified the skills required for every role, hard skills and soft skills. All of these, they did have minimum threshold for each and every role. So if I say I do have single discipline coordinator, what's the minimum score he needs or she needs to have on knowledge of BIM automation and practices? We do have a value for that. We have set all of this based on that. And then you keep considering some other benchmarks and to do the referencing. Guess what? People have been promoted based on that. So we do have promotion sessions, review session of 2 hours to review each and every single person among these 200 plus people that I have mentioned. You tell me, oh, that's a very exhaustive job. You know what we did have out of this? We did have very higher retention rate. People used to be resigning a lot, and always on the clearance interview, they will say, sorry, like, we don't feel the path was clear for us. That's why I want to leave. I have been offered something else in other company. And then we started to get our people sitting there. And this is mainly covering many offices, not just in UAE, but mainly in India, in many cities over there. The market is small. People started to talk to each other. And we started to get more people sending across their CVs, being interested into joining us. And then we were able to capture the crème de la crème, the best ones among all of these CVs. So you can check, you can see that soft impact on the process. It's not only about delivering project, it's even about maximizing the experience and talents. Next use case, photogrammetry. And I heard about digital twin and reality capture. I think you do have a context right now about what photogrammetry is. Reality capture is a field to office kind of technique, not necessarily BIM, where you do have the two components or segments. The first one is reality capture through LiDAR, laser scanning, which is very good for as-built, for deviations tracking, engineering support, but it cannot tick all of the boxes in terms of project management, progress reporting, monitoring, quality management, NCRs recording. You cannot do that with a point cloud. So photogrammetry is really the answer to that. So with that said, photogrammetry or reality capture here is an enabler of remote project management practice that we have worked on. We wanted our projects not necessarily to be physical projects. You can do it remotely. You are going to save a lot while keeping this as a platform where you can get access to a lot of use cases. One other thing I would like to mention, there was a question about accessibility to above ceiling service and reviewing the history, which is very important. If you do have reality capture and photogrammetry being done throughout the construction, you will be able, later on at operational phase, to review exactly how it used to be looking like. And then you do have like something called screen split. You do have how is it looking like today and how it was before the ceiling got closed. And then you do have a proper audit trail of the construction and constructability of every component in your site. So photogrammetry is really supportive of this. Hence, we did invest on this. So same, the way we approached it, forget about the steps. We took it phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We have implemented this as a use case in one of the projects, I believe, in KSA. And then after 6 months, we compiled all the best practices and lessons learned, which is more important. And then we built a proper governance around the organizational deployment, how to plan for it. We started the implementation in 12 projects, then we moved into 18 projects. And the last phase was more into getting this as standalone P&L service delivery to the market, just like many are trying to do right now in 2026. So how that governance was looking like. First of all, we have created a committee internally. If you remember what I have mentioned, you have project champions, you do have sponsors, sponsor for KSA, for UAE, for Qatar, across different projects, and you do have the executive sponsorship. Then you still have your solution provider. So the guys who are supplying the software or the platform, they are not disengaged. They are engaged. We used to have even like weekly catch-ups and ad hoc meetings 2 to 3 every week to follow up on each and every project. We have set an escalation system. So if you are encountering any challenge in one site, there is a proper mechanism set in place that you can share it with all the other projects. But before that, it's getting validated through this team and then pushed to the other sites to align with. What has been done, implementation timelines, ownership definition, responsibility matrix, who are the capturers, what do they have to do, quality engineers, inspectors at site, what are they expected to do or to collaborate on with the people who are leading this initiative. What kind of support a project manager on a construction site should be doing as well. We have detailed all of this to make sure your implementation is right. It's not about getting your software to site, do a presentation in the meeting room, get people excited, and then what's next? You have to define all of this. The collaboration space has been done. So for this, we have identified 8 practice areas where photogrammetry for remote project management can be really beneficial. And it doesn't mean like all the projects where we have implemented this, they have to align. Not necessarily. In some projects where you are just at handover, the project is running already. So it's more about snagging, de-snagging activities, close-out activities, rather than kickoff and dilapidation survey. It makes sense. If you are at the peak of the project, you have to think more about your inspections, your NCRs, your quality management as a process. So all of these are the main key practice areas that photogrammetry, properly implemented as a remote project management technique, could help you out to achieve excellence. Okay. Photogrammetry, it means photos, static, nice to see. So you are sitting on your office, seeing sites which is like thousands or hundreds of kilometers away from you. That's enough. No, it's not only the case. What you can build, this is where big data and data analytics comes to the picture. We have built reporting consoles to allow for, I won't say real time, it's near real time, like 4 hours to 5 hours delay of understanding where your sites are across the whole region. You just select it and review whatever pending with which contractor and which engineer as well, among the different sites that you do have across the region. So other initiatives, but this one will be quicker, in terms of business digitalization. Whenever you are on top of the supply chain, either you are a lead design consultant or you are the client, you do have a lot of stakeholders to manage. At pre-award, procurement stage, or at post-award, in terms of quality, performance, and delivery. So you need to have a proper assessment being done in place. Techno-commercial, understood, but you need to keep their technical performance in previous projects already available to you to do the decision needed or required in the next job that they're bidding for. So we have worked on building an application where we host all of this. Inputs generally used to be on manual type of inputs in terms of editable PDFs and Word documents. We have moved into SharePoint-based application, Microsoft list-based application, creating a database, and then integrating this as a kind of CRM enablement or CRM uplifting in terms of capabilities. Dashboarding, reporting, that's an obvious part, because it's always about data capturing, data processing, and data reporting. That's really the best practice into adopting any innovation, having a lot of data being used. The same, it has been used for other tasks. Generally, when your company goes into acquiring an ERP system or PMIS system, you are locked in. You are locked in the rules which are there, the business rules. You might have different rules of approvals, considerations, reporting, uplifting, markups, commercial, technical. So we have gone through this journey, and we have tried to get access to the live database, and from there we started to enable digital business rules validation. So rather than going into your own PMIS system or ERP systems, you can do it in a separate, as read-only in a separate ecosystem and environment. However, it's integrated bidirectional with your ERP. Again, to reiterate, people are the most important asset. What our industry is missing, and this is something I have seen in all the markets, like KSA, in UAE, in Qatar, and most of the companies, if you take them top-down or bottom-up on the supply chain, is to engage on the lessons learned practices, on the best practices. What's the problem? It's a cultural problem or mindset, because our people, they tend not to disclose all of this information with anybody else. So we have created something called Idea Machine, where people can share really the best practices and lessons learned from their own projects. And we did have after 3 months, we did have 43 contributions. Make your people learn on the LNG track. So securing platforms, securing internal libraries to get your people trained, and then progress, like tracking the progress of the training is good, but tracking how that has been supporting the efficiency and upgrading the efficiency of your business is very important. Last but not least, keep your people informed. LinkedIn is open to everybody. There is a lot of expectations in there. These are newsletters communicated internally about what's happening within the organization, with some useful tips and tricks about what's happening outside. This will allow for your people to get connected with the market, but as well to keep feeling like they're engaged in the internal digital innovation happening in the business. Thanks a lot. Sorry I overran the time, but I appreciate your attendance. Thank you.